I'd like to invite to the podium President Ross, if you could assist Drs. Franklin and Dr. Autry and myself in presenting our speaker with a token of our appreciation.
Oh, thank you. Wow, how beautiful. Yes.
And Judge, this is presented to you from the National Center of the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University. I present it to the Honorable Myron H. Thompson with a dedicated service to the ideals of equal justice for all under the law, November 27, 2018.
Thank you
so
very,
much.
very much.
Thank you,
I just want to say one final thing. And you see, they didn't hold the frayed sleeves against me.
I'd like to again invite to the lectern Drs. Janice Franklin and Dorothy Autry.
Thank you very much. Let me acknowledge Mrs. Thompson since we refer to her so much today. Would you please stand and let us acknowledge you, Mrs. Thompson, please? I would be remiss also if I didn't thank Judge Thompson for being with us here today, because I approached him about a year or so ago and asked him, would you please come to ASU and speak and be a part of our voting rights initiatives, and he readily accepted. So again, if you don't mind giving him another round of applause. I also want to thank all of the people here on the panel, Reverend McTeer and our distinguished president, Dr. Ross, again, for being a part of this program. And all of you who are here today, so many special guests that are supporting us with this special initiative today as we kick off a celebration of voting rights information. I want to thank our sponsors, the county commissioners who are here. Would you please stand and be recognized again? Thank you. Part of our reason for being here today is that we want to announce a very special project. This project we are calling the Voting Rights Research and Repository Project. It will be a site that we will implement as a place for depositing information on historical collections, resources, and data that will generate new research agendas on voting rights. Using the example of the African Sankofa bird, we are looking back and preserving this rich history, and also looking forward with establishment of a new digital toolkit for centralizing and accessing nonpartisan voting rights information essential to preserving our democracy. With the location of the Montgomery Interpretive Center on our campus at ASU, we feel a special public service imperative to serve as a clearinghouse for information on voting rights, with a special focus on African Americans in Alabama. Our dynamic, God-inspired vision for this project is illustrated on the diagram here that you will see. All of the special areas that we will focus on as part of this website. It will be a special website for voting rights research and will serve as a repository of information. Dr. Autry will give you a brief overview of the history that is our justification for establishing this new initiative.
The National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University is the university at the heart of the civil rights movement. Its students, faculty, staff, and its graduates were involved in every major episode of the civil rights crusade. For example, in 1965, the institution's students played an important role in the voting rights movement of that year. During the 2 weeks after Bloody Sunday in Selma, March 7, 1965, Alabama State University became the center of voting rights protest in Montgomery. ASU students joined by students from colleges around the nation, staged almost daily demonstrations from the campus to the state capitol and the county courthouse downtown, protesting the denial of blacks' right to vote. On March 24th, 1965, when the voting rights marchers arrived to Montgomery from Selma, 1,000 ASU students, led by our graduate, Reverend Richard Boone, met the marchers on the outskirts of the city. And on March 25th, the next day, ASU students and faculty joined 25,000 demonstrators in the final march to the state capitol in an outcry against voting rights injustices. But ASU's involvement in voting rights projects began years before 1965. In the mid to late 1940s and mid 1950s, the Women's Political Council, an ASU-based activist group, implemented a program aimed at expanding African Americans' right to vote. And it used the city's black youth to do so. The WPC established what it called its Youth City Initiative. The initiative provided a means where future African American voters could become engaged in the electoral process. Keep in mind that this activity took place long before the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which made it possible for the youth's parents to vote. And of course, years prior to the passage of the amendment to the Constitution, which allowed 18-year-olds to vote. In this project, established by the WPC, African American youth high school students were engaged in what can be called mock electoral activities, including changing or charging students with mock elections, including setting up electoral campaigns and projects, and also campaigning for the right to vote in mock elections. These examples represent the fact that Alabama State University, for long years, recognized the importance of the ballot as a means of enhancing and protecting blacks' rights to the American citizenship. This lesson has not been lost on the institution's graduates. ASU alumni can be found in abundance among local and state politicians. Today, we present this program, we announce this new project, and we call attention to the fact that the interpretive center is on our campus to say again that ASU views the voting right as important and critical to challenging societal injustices and protecting the ballot as we see it. God bless you.
On August 6th, that 52nd anniversary of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, Alabama State University, the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture, will roll out its VRRRP, or the Voting Rights Research Repository Project. This is a mock-up of the website that will go live on August 6th. And you'll notice there are several components. One, Dr. Autry just talked about, is the Youth City component. The VRRRP project looks to recreate Youth City here in Montgomery, to organize area high school students, future leaders, to provide them with workshops, tutelage, mentorship in the political process, and then to have mock elections, citywide youth elections, to familiarize our students with public advocacy and civil engagement. We also will roll out a think tank. This will be an annual program. We'll deal with some issue relative to voting rights, democracy, to the political process. We'll bring together a number of people who have a significant expertise and experience in with that particular issue. So the particular issue of the year will be addressed in a think tank forum, and we will record the findings of that think tank and publish those findings, and then shop those findings around to the people that could implement change. So the think tank and the Youth City project are two of the elements that will roll out starting in August of 2018. This website also has a resource page, and on that resource page, we look at, again, there's a symbiotic or connected relationship between this project and the university archives and the collections that are at the university archives. So there's an emphasis, and we pulled out those materials relative to voting rights that are already housed. One of the elements that is really going to be the cornerstone of the materials related to voting rights will be the Alabama Democratic Conference papers. Dr. Joel Reed facilitated the donation of those papers to Alabama State. There's over 300 cubic feet of materials in those papers that deal with politics in Alabama from 1960 through to the 1980s and 90s. And so that rich collection, which we're struggling to organize, but will be making available to the public, will really form the cornerstone of the VRRRP materials related to voting rights. But then we have a number of other collections that we have amassed over the years that speak to voting rights. We also have a number of oral histories. We're going to be conducting more oral histories specific to elected officials, specific to the political process. This is an example of some of the oral histories that we've already done. We're also going to have a number of images related to the modern civil rights movement. There are images of student activism. One of the things that I think people are not really tuned into is how critical young people were in the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and how central Alabama and Alabama State students were in that process. In 1965, in January, President Lyndon Baines Johnson had a phone conversation with Martin Luther King, and that conversation you could hear online. And Johnson had spent much of his political capital pushing through the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and thought he wanted Martin Luther King to wait to push for what would be the 1965 Civil Rights Act, or Voting Rights Act. But he did tell Martin Luther King, he says, if you want to push this act ahead of my great society, you're going to have to make it, you're going to have to have the people demand it. You're going to have to create enough interest and enough focus on voting rights in Alabama and Mississippi, he said specifically, to reshuffle the legislative agenda. And so what happens, and so the Selma-to-Montgomery March is a part of that initiative on the part of the SCLC. But I would also argue that the students who relocated from Selma to Montgomery and then demonstrated, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the student arm in the Civil Rights Movement, sent out a directive around the nation. They said to protest where you are, to go to the nation's capital, or to come to Montgomery, Alabama. Thousands of students came to Montgomery. 15,000 students camped out in Lafayette Park in the nation's capital. And then over the whole nation, you saw the sprouting of protests throughout the nation. It created almost a sense of chaos in this nation. Okay? And so those initiatives on the part of students, particularly with the center of it occurring here in Montgomery, those initiatives helped to create the pressure on Congress and the demand on the president that he reshuffled his legislative deck and pushed voting rights to the forefront. We celebrate that. We'll celebrate that through this website. We will help our students today recognize that history. The students of yesteryear were also very astute and not only protesting, but also identifying their congressmen, lobbying their congressmen, understanding and making contact with students in other parts of the nation, really similar to what students, young people are doing today. So this website and this initiative will help us reach out to area students and to attune them to some of the lessons of their predecessors. We also focus again on the Women's Political Council. The inspiration for the Youth City comes from the Women's Political Council, and we think that the work of the Women's Political Council, this is Mary Fairburks, Professor Mary Fairburks, began the Women's Political Council here at Alabama State in 1946. She organized about 100 women in and around the university, and then they sprouted out 2 additional chapters in Montgomery. Each of them had about 100 women, so there were about 300 black women in Montgomery. Well, not all black women. I think Mrs. Gretz was a part of the Women's Political Council. And so, but they worked towards ameliorating the conditions and recreation in Montgomery for black youth. They worked on the buses, of course, and of course the president of the Women's Political Council spearheaded, they called for the Montgomery bus boycott on the night of Rosa Parks' arrest. So this was a dynamic group in Montgomery, and we want to pay homage to the work that they've done, and we want to carry on the work that they've done specifically with young people and political awareness. There are other resources on this website. Look forward to engaging the website in August. There's a number of people. I want to have one other slide come up of elected officials. One of the other resources that we're going to look at is elected officials who have graduated from Alabama State University. And we started to amass a list of these people. Darryl Parker, I called Darryl Parker, Representative Fab McClammy, Darryl Sinkfield helped me to put together this list. This is just a preliminary list. They insist that there are, hundreds of elected officials who come from, or who have graduated from Alabama State. We're going to collect their oral histories, their biographies, and we want to highlight them. This institution has been an incubator for black political activities, particularly our SGA, right? And so those graduates of Alabama State who have matriculated through our SGA have then used that background to step into the political process. And some of them have even used that background to step through the political process and into the presidency of Alabama State University. And so you could almost look at the Alabama State's SGA over its years of existence and see the black leadership in the state of Alabama and around the nation. And so we want to harness that energy, have them also work with students, and to pair them with the seasoned politicians of today who could give them tutelage in how to move their political aspirations to the next level. Okay. So that is our VRRRP, or Voting Rights Research Repository Project. I hope you will support us. I'm going to be reaching out to a number of you to ask you to help us and to help facilitate the work that we plan to do. Okay. I'm going to invite Dr. Franklin up to say a few parting words, and we'll participate in our repast.
I think we have a special contribution. Would you come forward? Give us just a few more minutes.
We're inviting Mrs. Mary Boone to the dais. We had the honor and the privilege of working with Reverend Richard Boone. When I say working with Reverend Richard Boone, we at the National Center at Alabama State University understood the role that Alabama State students and young people played in the modern civil rights movement, but particularly in the voting rights campaign of 1965. And we spent about 10 years trying to get the National Park Service to locate their third interpretive center here at Alabama State University. as academics, we could do research and we could investigate and write about that experience. But to have a person who was intricately involved in that process endorse our efforts and work closely with us, I think made a difference. Matter of fact, I think made the difference. And so Reverend Boone has passed away, but we pay homage to him and celebrate his, not only his lifelong commitment to black people and to social justice, but also in his later years, his commitment to Alabama State and the perpetuation and the celebration of the voting rights story, the civil rights story, and we will honor him when this interpretive center is open to the public, and will insist that the National Park Service interpret his story in that exhibit, along with the other important elements of the modern civil rights movement and the voting rights movement. But today, Mrs. Boone has a contribution to the National Center, and she saw Reverend Boone's commitment to our initiative. She encouraged him and worked with him and worked with us, and she's continued to be a partner with the National Center after Reverend Boone's passing, and so she has raised money to contribute. I'd like you to say a few words.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. What I decided to do, and to the guests, to everyone here, thank you all so much for having me here. But what I decided to do for my birthday is ask some of my closest friends to give me $6. And I said, would you give me $6 for my birthday? And some of my closest friends are here right now. So as I talk about Reverend Boone and why I decided to do this, would you all please just stand up, some of my closer friends, all of you all who gave $6 for my birthday, if you would stand up so I can go on and talk about this, then I want to applaud you. All right, thank you so much. Now, the reason I did this is because Reverend Boone loved Alabama State so much. And he came home to talk about the Interpretive Center and what it would do. It reminds me in a way of that movie that made so much money, the Black Panther movie. And the reason it reminds me of that movie is because there were so many hidden things in that movie. So many things were hidden. And here at Alabama State, so many treasures were hidden when all of these heroes came up and decided they're not going to be hidden anymore. And so I decided for my birthday, any amount that was raised on Facebook, I paid the setup cost, so every dime would go to them. And I said, now I'll be 66, and so I want at least $660. And that's what my friends did for me. And that's what I'm going to contribute today. But then I thought about that movie for a few minutes. And I said, that movie made $6 billion. So with this $660, you all, just take this right now, and next year for my birthday, all I want is $5 billion, 999 million, 900 and probably a few $1,000. And so you think that movie was important, but believe me, when you talk about the Black Panther, everything started right here in Montgomery, Alabama. Keep that in mind for next year for my birthday. And so the 660 this year, and I look forward to the amount you're going to give to this school in honor of my husband, in honor of the Interpretive Center. And I thank all of you so much. All right, and all the names are on the back who contribute. Thank you so much. This is really
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Our repast is ready to be served. So let's let the special guest at the head table go first. And we have plenty of food to eat, so enjoy. Thank you for coming again.